Good morning, everybody. We are in for a treat today. Sandy Bateman with JER HR Group is going to be talking about inclusion and reaching out to others even while socially distanced. So for that reason, I will be allowing you to join as a panelist. I'll be changing you from attendee to panelist. So if your screen goes away, don't be scared that you'll be coming back. So feel free to join or show your video and unmute yourself if you want to talk. We'll be asking questions. I see I got a few more people here in the attendees I need to let in, but let me get started here. There we go. So the purpose of our webinars is to deliver monthly motivation, expose you to one of our inspiring programs and our products. And recently, well, in the last few months, we have joined. Trying to get my next slide here. There we go. Oh, too far. We got a little delay here with my controls, but thank you, Sandy. Inspiring Solutions joined JER HR Group, and we are very excited about this new partnership that we have because it allows us to really improve and increase our toolbox offerings. They are based out of New York and North Carolina, and now we have an office in Iowa. There are over 40 experienced senior consultants that they have, and they have provide talent development, strategic planning, compensation consulting, and workplace engagement, and they're very strong with HR consulting. And they also have another company called Training Network that provides e-learning opportunities and an LMS. So I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Sandy Bateman. If you've been on our webinars before, she was our speaker in January, and she is the Director of Leadership and Development for JER HR Group, and she designs and implements courses for JER Group for clients for the past 14 years. She's the author of What Should Learning and Development Professionals Be Preparing For Next. It's an ebook that you can find on the JER HR Group website. And Sandy is certified professional in talent development, and she's also certified with the Wiley courses and Profiles Checkpoint 360 and Profiles Managerial Fit. So from there, I'd like to give it over to Sandy, and she will share with us inclusion. And I'm going to be letting people in as panelists so you can show your video.
Thank you, Dana. So this is great. And, you know, it's kind of hard to talk about how to stay connected when you're socially distanced if you can't see people. So I am really thrilled and appreciate those of you sharing your videos. That is one of our requirements when we get our teams together, because so much of our communication is through our body language and our eyes, and it's so important. So today, we're talking about socially distanced. And my point is, this is not a new thing. We're going to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in light of that, social distancing has been around for a long, long time. We just happen to have had a much more global experience of what it means to be disconnected in the last year. So today we're going to spend some time talking about best practices on being inclusive and boiled it down to 6 tips for inclusion that really work not only for today's environment, but for future environments. So we've had physical isolation, but for a long time, we've had a global distancing. And that's why I thought it makes sense to talk about this in terms of inclusion. We also have a webinar offer today that we'll share with you as we get to the end of our session. Now, for logistics, since we have quite a few people, we've got 32 people today, 36. If you have a question, if you will, put it in the chat box, and we will take a break and answer questions towards the end. This is intended to be information sharing, not a typical virtual gathering where we have interaction and engagement as much as I'd like. So it will move rather quickly. First thing is, in your chat box, this is my attempt at a little bit of engagement. I'd like to find out what has been the hardest thing for you being socially at distance over the last year. So in chat, just put one phrase. What do you miss the most about not seeing your coworkers? I see being around people. Thank you, Kelly. Not being able to see family and friends. That's been very hard, Cindy, hasn't it? For me, just not being able to hug a friend, touch somebody, isolation, missing the moments, bouncing ideas, absolutely. And I will tell you, we've been bouncing ideas virtually and it has helped. Spontaneous conversations, interesting. Cultural change in the workplace, big changes going on. Just missing lunch and coffee breaks. You know, I have some friends who actually have gone out and gotten to go food and then met in the parking lot so they can see each other across the car. Happy hour, great. Absence of a personal networking, less structured interactions, team building. It's been quite a cultural change for everybody. Thank you for sharing and certainly continue to. I'm going to move on in the interest of time, but I think all of these things hit the gamut of isolation, from personal workplace isolation to family and coworker and friends. And we're going to talk a little bit about all of those today. So it's always been important to make sure we have a culture that's inclusive. But in times of crisis, which we certainly have been in the last year, it's even more important. And some of the resources that we've referred to are the dashboard from the digital dashboard, diversity dashboard, and also human resource executive. And they all support what we are seeing as well, how important it is to stay connected. So how do you keep this focus on inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion when we're so isolated? I love these little some cartoons. I know you've seen them, some of you on the internet. And it really makes the point that equality and equity are not the same thing. And that's when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. You see there's a difference between these two pictures. So we've got some little characters. They don't all look the same, as we as humans don't all look the same, but they all have a need, and they all have a need to be kind of at eye level. So if we equally shared the resources among these characters, it wouldn't meet that need. So equality doesn't meet people where their needs are, but equity does. And that's why when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we use that word. So the smaller character needed a little more help getting up to eye level. That's a very important statement and core principle with DEI. DEI, we start with awareness around where everybody's coming from so that we get a sense of what their needs are. This is the classic dimensions of diversity. Some of these things we're born with, and these are attributes we have that we live with, and we don't necessarily change. Some may have, we have gender change and sexual orientation change, but it's a part of who we are physically. Then the outer circle are those things that we sort of grow with, where we grow up, what opportunities we have, who we interact with. Important to think about that as we're working with people is, what's their history? What's their personal history? Where did they come from? So a big part of connecting socially is being aware that everybody is not like us. So equality equality is not going to work, because if we made equality based on who we are and where we come from, there's a whole range of different dimensions that would not necessarily reach to. We can look at people come from different backgrounds. It could be their marital status, their work status, their nationality, how they think, whether they are a traditional thinker or a non-traditional thinker. But recently, these top variations have really come to light in the age of COVID. So it's not just the things below, but it's also childcare. You know, today on the news, there was another story about the number of women who are out of work because of COVID. And it was something like 50 plus million women out of work. People having to stay home and be with their kids because they don't have childcare. Healthcare, as we're stressed with our health. Internet access, as we all reach out across the globe virtually, is a real divider. And so again, as we try to think about how we include members of our teams, these are things we need to keep in mind. PowerPoint goes to sleep, so you have to wake it up. This is from a research that was done, and it really speaks to the whole importance of inclusion. So this particular research is from some years ago, but it points to the fact that of the people who were queried, 95% feel it's important to be included. And so that's why we say it's so critical. 91% need to feel that the organization would recommend it to a friend because they feel comfortable. We talk about best places to work, and 60% plan to stay for 3+ years. And this was from Human Resource Executives research. So again, feeling included. Even more important when we can't see each other face to face. So let's start talking about the 6 key tips for helping people to feel included. Communicate more than normal. You know, when you're in the workplace, things happen automatically as you move about your office space. And it's easy to drop by somebody's office or pass someone in the hall. When you're isolated, it has to be more intentional. And for every face-to-face meeting, sometimes it may take 3 times more virtual meetings to make that connection. So it's very important to make a plan and communicate. And it's also important that you make a plan that is not just your plan, that it works for everybody in the team. Thinking about what is their connection to the internet, what's their preference for the format. So I say vary the format. People forget about the phone. Pick up the phone and call people. Use a conference number. You can use FaceTime if people have FaceTime, but find other ways to connect. Snail mail, we certainly can use snail mail if we need to, but use them appropriately. So as you work with the people that you're trying to connect with, find out what works for them. And that's a key rule for any kind of attempt to be inclusive, is don't just do what works for you. Talk with the people that you're trying to connect with and find out how they would like to be included. Make sure people understand what's going on. Don't just make decisions and send things out. Let them know what's happening and give them buy-in. If there's a situation in which they can have some input, make that decision with them. Make sure messages that go out are consistent. Don't tell one person one thing and one person another. And make sure you're transparent. So if there are some things that are perhaps holding the organization back or they're creating some confusion, be sure you share that with people, because that's how you build trust among people. This is probably the most important thing when you're socially distanced, is to keep that communication going. And the second daily check-ins of some kind, whether it's with the team or it's with individuals. But you need to be thinking daily about how are you going to connect with your team. So you can have virtual team meetings where you have people give a quick update. Chat platforms like Microsoft Teams. And I will say one caveat to that is be careful about your expectations for people to reply immediately to your email or chat, because and we'll talk about work-life balance, what becomes your work day when you're socially isolated, you're at home, may not be the same work day that it was when you had to go into the office from 9 to 5. So especially don't assume that before 9 and after 5, when you send a chat asking for a quick response, it's going to come. In some ways, it can be perceived as insulting by the person you send it to because you're not respecting their time. So when you do use virtual platforms to communicate with people, it helps if with the team you can have an agreement on what platforms you use and when. If you need an answer right now, maybe phone is the best thing. Or if you agree with your team or using Microsoft Teams or a chat platform, we'll use it, but during these hours. But be intentional on what you're doing. We are going to share this PDF of this PowerPoint with you. So if you don't have it, it will be sent. So when things are hard, it's especially important to have those check-ins. And this is, as I said earlier, it can take as many as 3 times virtual meetings as it does a face-to-face. And make sure you're checking in with everybody, not just about work, but how are they doing personally? You don't want to be invasive into their personal space, but by the same token, as we started earlier today, Dana and John and I were talking about all the storms that came through yesterday. Just checking in to see how we all were. Because, tornadoes warnings came through where John is yesterday. And at one point, I was in a watch area. So it just means we care about each other and we're just seeing how people are doing. And that's important. And sometimes we may have celebrations we want to share, and that brings some positivity to the workplace. So certainly don't go for a week without checking in with people. Daily may work for your team. It may be that it's less frequently, but have a plan. This is a good time to focus on learning and development while you're working a little bit separated from the day-to-day requirements. Sometimes you could do a short team building activity. Play with your platforms, your virtual platforms. If your team's not comfortable with it, explore breakout rooms, explore using chat, asking questions, using annotate on the tools. There's a lot of engagement tools in many of the virtual tools that are out there, whether you're using GoToMeeting or Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Use it as an opportunity for your teams to learn those platforms. I have a strong feeling that virtual communication and connection is not going to go away. Another story recently on the news was in San Francisco, and the number of big organizations who are giving up their office space. They're not going to have large office spaces anymore. They're going to have a portion of their members who will stay virtual. So we need to learn how to use the tools and when it's best to use it. Find something positive that you can focus on, learning a new skill. And our opportunity for you at the end is to have a significant discount on some of our on-demand virtual training that you can get from our training network. So we'll share that with you. But there are certainly those things. There are certainly opportunities to practice some skills among your team out during this time. Wellness is critical, and be intentional with that as well. Be flexible and human. People are coping with lots of things outside of work. Be understanding. If they need to take the time off to go and get their vaccination, by all means do it. I've been on several Zooms in the last month and a half where the area that I live in, we had to either call or log in to get an appointment for our vaccination shot. And it was hard to get there. I mean, they would open up the number of spaces available and it would be open for 15 minutes. And if you didn't stop right then and call, you would miss that one. So there were many Zooms that we were on, and we'd get a call and we'd drop it and say, hold on, let me go make this call. And we'd disappear to go make that call and get our appointment and then come back. You know, that was perfectly all right. That's the kind of flexibility that you need. Focus on the important and let people do the things that they have to do. Make sure you have the support and the tools that people need. As I said, not everybody has a good internet. All right, what can you do to gather as a team? Maybe one day, if you're physically in a similar location, you go to a McDonald's parking lot or somewhere where there's internet that you can get to, and you have a virtual gathering. For people who couldn't be there, they could be on the connection with their phone, or you can be in the cars and be connected. Find ways to stay connected. That is the most important thing. Give people permission to take care of themselves, to exercise. And if they need to do it during the day, then their work time could be more flexible. Encourage people to be mindful and taking time out to meditate or do whatever they need to do to help them mentally as well, because the only way we're going to cope with stress is to deal with some of the mental through mindfulness, meditation, exercise. Also respect their privacy. Not everybody wants to be on Zoom every day. Not everybody wants to be on Zoom 3 and 4 times a day. Zoom fatigue is a real thing. So again, it's even more important to find out from your team how they like to be communicated with. And if they would like to have some privacy and not communicate today, that's okay. If they're ill, they have a loved one in and they don't want to talk about it, that's okay. All you need to do is let them know you're thinking about them, and then just see if they're okay in a way that's appropriate. Empower managers to lead the change. If you trust your management team when they're in the office, then trust them with how they work with their team. Give them good guidance and then trust them to do the job. Also, trust them to work at a pace that's comfortable. Pacing now is almost more important than at any other time. We have so much change going on, and especially now as it relates to DEI, with all of the upheaval out there relative to Black Lives Matter, the Asian threats, just so many things going on. People need time and space to deal with what's going on. Some may need to talk, some may not, but give people the honor to work at their own pace in making those changes, and get together as a team on how you will move forward. And then the last thing, and not the least important, is to recognize people. Don't forget to give congratulations, thank yous. Recognition is the number one thing that employees ask for. And when we do a lot of our leadership development training, it's one of the things that people often will forget to do. We get so caught up in the day-to-day, we forget to praise people, and people love it. So it's very important. Recognition and open communications are some of the top strategies for helping people to feel included and to move forward. And when people feel included, they feel valued and they feel heard. And that's what this is all about as we try to get beyond social distancing. This quote I particularly thought was good because I think it speaks to the time that we're at right now. If we all have an integrated life. We don't have a work life. We don't have a home life. That's what work-life balance was all about. And so it's important that if you need to walk the dog, you walk the dog. We constantly will have Zoom meetings and we'll hear a dog barking in the background. It's because our meeting's gone a little long and the dog needs to go out. Okay, let the dog out. I chuckle every time I see some of the PBS news hours and I watch for the cats on the couch. It's fine. You know, we're human. It's been kind of nice, quite frankly, to see people's humanity in the background of our Zooms. So give yourself permission to be you and to share that as much as you want. Set boundaries for your work time. If you've got something you need to work on, it's okay to set your out of office status in Teams or your email or whatever, but take care of yourself. And for the managers, allow your people to live the integrated life and take care of themselves. All right, I'm going to stop. This is our offer, but I also want to ask her some questions. So I will stop for now and ask Dana, do we have any questions or comments in chat?
Let me unmute. I have not seen any, but everybody has the opportunity to unmute themselves if you want to ask questions.
Or share comments.
Yeah. Or if you want to type it in the box or chat box, that's fine too, and I can read them.
While you're all thinking, just to tell you about this offer. So we just pointed out one offering that is on the Training Network website in particular, and it talks about leading virtual meetings. And certainly there's a $100 discount on that with the code that is on the screen now. So you can take advantage of that. Also at Training Network, there's some great diversity and inclusion sessions. There's some full 90-minute, couple of hour sessions that are on demand. There are also some quick learning modules that are 20, 30-minute modules that are available. In diversity and inclusion, it's just a whole range of topics. So it's a good time to take advantage of all of that. Doug says, great presentation. He says that recognition piece can easily be forgotten about. Absolutely. So, you know, Bob Nelson is a writer who's been doing stuff about recognition and ways to remind people of how they're important. I'm getting my little mouse pad that I have from him. It's like 1001 ways to reward employees. Rewards and recognitions from Bob Nelson. This is his mouse pad, but his book is out there. And if you need some reminders, it's a great little tool to do that, to tell you, to help you think of things. Sometimes you can have your team to tell you what would be rewarding for them. There's the book. Yay. Thank you, Kelly. 1001 Ways to Reward Employees. That's a great little book. Yes. Anybody else want to share anything? Maybe something that you've done that's worked well within your team.
Well, we've got, let's see, definitely agree with us having to be so intentional in ensuring we are maintaining connections. That's right. Well, we have about a minute left, so I'm going to go ahead and finish up, and feel free to stay on afterwards and chat with us. And oh, how long is the discount good for? That's a very good question, John. You know, this code is good for other products as well. So I would encourage you to go on and just look around. But yeah, I'm sure it will. We'll keep it out there for the next month or so. And then
yeah, at least until the next webinar session, which is in April. Yeah.
We play bingo and Kahoot. That's why we spend time. Oh, that's a good idea.
And yeah, little fun things. I've got a group of friends that I try to stay connected with, and we use a little app called Marco Polo. I don't know if anybody's used that, but it's on the phone and it's free. And it is a way to send little video chats, but you don't have to respond in time. So you can sit when you're available and people will get an alert and they can watch it when they have time to. So it doesn't require required of people to be talking together synchronously at the same time. And it's been a great way for us to keep in touch. Sometimes when we go, we'll go for a walk. We'll send a Marco Polo to our friends of our walk just to say, here's a nice shot for you today. Look at the trees. Aren't they pretty? It's kind of helps us keep focused. So I see somebody said we had a wellness challenge where employees were on teams for accountability, but we're able to do the actual activities independently. Yeah. And I think we're going to see more and more of that, to be honest. So as I said, I don't think that this is a COVID only situation. I think we're going to be more and more in need of using virtual communications and connections.
Okay. Well, we want to thank you for joining us this Friday. Sandy had some really good tips and appreciate that. I appreciate you being here. Please join us next month for another webinar. We have these every third Friday of the month, and you will receive an email with the invite, and feel free to invite others. Trying to get to the next slide. Okay, April 7th, we have a special one, and that's called Feedback to Get Ahead, Smarter and Stronger. Michelle and John, John's on the webinar this morning. They will be presenting this, and it's an introduction to a culture index survey process that we're very excited about. We think it's a really good tool to use as we start getting back to work and to understand, how has your culture been affected through this pandemic in the last year? So join us for that special one. It's a 30-minute one, and I see I don't have the time up there. And John, do you remember, is that 2 o'clock on the 7th?
It's at 12 o'clock Eastern time.
Okay, thank you.
For 30 minutes. Yep.
April 16th, we have another guest presenter, Megan Richardson from Dynamic Corporate Solutions. She's going to talk about mitigating HR risks. And then May 21st, Rochelle will be back talking about the 5 behaviors of our virtual team. So with that, please take a moment when you sign out of the webinar and give us your feedback. We really appreciate it. And we will share it with Sandy, and it helps us understand what your interests are and to plan for future webinars. So thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. It was great to see faces. Bye-bye.
Feel free to stay on.